That would be helpful, Father.
That would be helpful, Father.
Okay. Gotta focus. Hey, I'm Father Mark Mary.
I'm Sister Maria Regina.
I am a Franciscan friar of the Renewal.
And I am a Sister of Life.
And this is Ascension Presents. Sister Maria Regina bringing us home here. Some practicals on discernment. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Yes. So this journey is unique for each of us, but there are a couple universal practicals we can talk about. And first, just to paint the picture a little bit, discernment is a means to an end. It's not meant to last forever, thank heavens. At a certain point, when I believe the Lord is leading me in a certain direction, it can be really good to take a first step. So to knock on the door, to try something. Because when we take a step, God can make it really clear if we're doing the right thing. If I take one step in a direction, he can say, turn around, you're going the wrong way. Or he can say, yes, take another step. But sometimes we won't know that unless we take a step. So discernment is meant to lead to something. And at a certain point, we just got to take a step and see what happens. Another truth, practical thing to think about is that we don't have to know what the final thing will look like to take the first step. We don't have to know the end destination to take the first step. It's true on a hike. It's true in life. I take the first step, and often that is all the Lord will shed light on. Okay, enough light for the next step. I don't need to know what the final picture will look like, and that's okay. Reaching out to a community doesn't mean that I'm signing my final vows with them. Asking someone on a date, it's not saying, I want to marry you and have 6 kids. We're just taking the first step to see if the Lord is continuing to lead in that direction.
One of our priests uses the image of discernment of like driving at night, like where you have your lights on, and it's like you don't know the whole road, and to see more of the road, you got to keep going, right? And so it is part of the unfolding of God's plan is like step by step by step, or Poco a Poco, as we say.
There we go. Yeah, no, it's true. It makes me think of, I love to think about Frodo in the Lord of the Rings. Big fan of Lord of the Rings. There's many.
Not a big fan of Lord of the Rings, but it's all right. It's all right. Go ahead.
There's many truths there about life in every way. But you think about vocation in Lord of the Rings, and when Frodo first got the ring, all he knew was the next step. He didn't know that he was going to end up with it on Mount Doom at the end of the world. Like, he didn't know that was the end, and that's okay. He just knew the next step this mission was inviting him to. So just an encouragement there. And it can really, help to look at the lives of the saints with that. One yes helps me give the next yes, and it helps give the next yes. So it's a journey, and that's okay. Another truth and practical is that we are not meant to discern alone. The gift of being Catholic, that we are meant to be accompanied on this journey. Sometimes it's hard to be objective about ourselves. We don't need to just walk this journey alone. So say I reach out to Vocations Director in a community and I receive an answer that I'm not expecting. I can trust that this person actually is living the grace of a mission of discernment, and that they are also praying to the Holy Spirit, and that they are helping me discern what God is doing in my life. So that's okay, that I don't discern alone. Even if it's unexpected, I can trust that God is working in that.
For whatever reason, for a variety of reasons, that a bit of a harder one, I think, for a lot of people, right? But it is true that we don't discern in a vacuum. Particularly within the church, there is this communal ordered way of discernment, right? Yeah. But we have radical confidence because we trust that the Lord is at work within the practicals and the persons, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So with this being said, what does this look like? Any real life practical examples?
Yeah, definitely. I love to think about St. John Paul II. What an awesome father to the church. He was one of the longest reigning popes. You look at the immense amount of encyclicals he wrote, he brought the church to, through the new millennium. When he was in seminary, he asked his bishop at least 3 different times if he could leave the seminary and enter a Carmelite monastery. and his bishop said no each time, the entire church is so grateful for that bishop's no. And I think that's a confirmation that when we are trying to pursue something and someone in authority, someone who's walking with us communicates like, no, I don't think this is the Lord's will for you, to trust that God is working in that. So his life is just one example. It also makes me think of Maria in The Sound of Music. It's one of my favorite movies. And she has a line in the movie where she says something like, you know, where the Lord closes a door, somewhere he opens a window. And that is a great analogy, I think, for discernment, where if I am trying to pursue something and it seems like a window has closed or a door has closed, that means that there's another door opening somewhere else. That this no that I received, this closed door, that you know, I have to work through that. I have to accept that, pray with that, bring that to the Lord. But it doesn't end there. It means there's another door opening somewhere else that actually has something really good and beautiful for me. So there's a lot of hope there.
And sister, for those who are discerning or who are in it right now, what would you recommend?
Mm-hmm. It's a great question. I think of the Christian paradox that from death comes new life. You know, it's just true. Whatever vocation I'm called to, I'm going to be called to lay down my life as a gift, to be the seed that falls to the ground and dies, and so that it can bear much fruit. So just a little quick personal story. I remember at the Mass of my final vows, I had just professed them out loud, and I walked up to the altar to sign them on the altar. And that in itself was very powerful, signing my vows on this altar of sacrifice where Jesus, you know, is offered every day in the holy sacrifice of the Mass. And as I was signing the vows, I paused for a moment and I looked up at the congregation and I saw the thousands of people who were gathered there. I saw the sisters up in the choir loft. And what I wasn't expecting in that moment was this overwhelming, powerful sense of freedom that rushed upon me in that moment. And it felt like such a paradox because there I was signing these vows, which invited me to die to myself at every moment for the rest of my life. And I felt the most free I had ever felt. I thought, I will go anywhere. I will do anything. I am free. It is given. You know, it's over. I was the most free and alive in myself I had ever been in that moment of like complete self-gift. So this is what we're wanting to posture our hearts toward. So how can we prepare ourselves for that in the meantime? I would encourage like just finding a way to make a gift of yourself in the meantime. You know, whether that's volunteering or serving or finding someone in my life that I can love, that I can give of myself. Kind of knocking up against my, you know, dying to my own will in little ways, making a gift of myself in little ways. It kind of helps that posture of self-gift become stronger, become more full and free in my own heart, so that when the invitation comes to make that gift of myself, I will be ready to make that gift. It's almost like practicing ahead of time, you know, and in a very real way, I come to find myself in giving myself away. So by making a gift of myself and giving myself away, I actually come to know who I am and I know my heart in a deeper way. And that's another great thing to do in discernment is to say, I'm going to, look for Jesus in these other ways. I'm going to look for Jesus in this person that I'm serving. You know, what do I learn about my own heart in this gift that I'm making? All of these things kind of help take our eyes off ourselves and our own kind of stressing out about the journey and trying to figure it out. And we encounter Jesus, we encounter his love, we encounter our own hearts. And through that can receive the gift of the plan that he has for us, just in new and unexpected ways.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's a beautiful truth, right? That ultimately our vocations where God's inviting us to kind of give ourselves away most perfectly, right? And so it makes sense that part of that journey is actually starting to learn how to give ourselves away in love. Right?
Yes. Yeah. It's awesome. It's the truth that the love of your heart is unique and you have been made to give it in a particular way and no one else can give the same gift that you can give, which is pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome.
All right. So part of like a dynamic, of course, of receiving the gift, right, is going to be waiting. And waiting can often feel like wasted time. Like if we're waiting, we're not making progress. What would you say to that?
I would say that is not true. That the time of waiting is not wasted time. If we're in communion with the Lord, that time, I would describe it, it can feel very vulnerable because I don't know what the plan is. I might be uncertain, unsure of what's going to happen. I want to get out of that place as soon as I can. But that place is actually a sweet spot in our spiritual lives. You know, if we can ask for the grace to remain there in that posture, because that posture is one of dependency, it's one of need, it's one of having to wait for the Lord. Anytime we're feeling vulnerable, it's an invitation to trust and intimacy with Jesus. So actually, in this time when we don't know, when we're waiting, we're longing to hear, asking Jesus to help me stay there, that is actually a deep place of intimacy and growth in my relationship with him, which is where he's going to reveal my vocation. So nothing is wasted if I'm giving this time to Jesus and bringing it back to the heart-to-heart relationship. Invitations to trust, learning how to grow in trust, really fruitful for the rest of our lives. I think also just given our culture, we're so used to instantaneous answers. You know, we plug something into Google and you can figure it out in less than 5 seconds. I know for myself, when I open up my computer and it takes more than 10 seconds to load, I start to get impatient. Like, we're so used to receiving answers instantaneously. And I think just to say it, God is not like that. You know, he's a person. It's a relationship. It's communication. He's my Father. He knows when I'm ready. And he's not a vending machine. You know, I don't put something in and then get something out. It's actually, he wants me to come to know him, because this is what it's all about at the end of the day. So it's, trusting that he knows when we're ready to receive, and asking for the graces of patience and trust in that time.
Okay, so now how about just even kind of more practical recommendations?
Yeah, definitely. I know we keep saying it, but daily prayer is essential. And by this, I mean silent heart-to-heart encounter with the Lord. I would recommend, if possible, 30 minutes a day. You can just start where you're at, start with 5 minutes. Don't bite off a chunk that's too big. Start with 5 minutes and build up little by little, heart-to-heart encounter with Jesus. Questions you can ask in prayer. How have you made my heart to love? Lord, how have you made my heart to love? And what shape is my love meant to take? Because he's got a shape. He's got a shape for it and a plan. I would really encourage setting aside times of silence and no screen time. I think both are important. In some ways, it helps kind of purify our senses. We were talking earlier about the eyes and ears of our heart. And so kind of tuning out the external sound and getting off the screen. That kind of purifies my eyes and my ears to hear and see the Lord and his love for me. It helps quiet my heart, helps me become attentive to his voice in my heart. Seeing if I can find a spiritual director can be really helpful. As we said, we're not meant to walk this journey alone. You can ask your, a campus chaplain or your parish priest if they're available or if they have any ideas. I think you also can ask your diocese, do they have spiritual directors they recommend? I know there are a lot of lay people trained for that, and that can be such a gift too, because it is hard to be objective about ourselves and just have someone walk with us, and it can be so helpful. Also, just growth in living a virtuous life, really, really important. So asking, looking at our lives, are there areas where I'm struggling with addictions or sin or weaknesses, things that can cloud my spiritual vision and my hearing and make it difficult to hear what the Lord wants? These things can be like blocks in our heart, and our hearts have to be open to receive what he wants. So anything I can do to unclog what's there. So an encouragement to reach out and ask for help. You're not meant to be alone in your struggle, whether it's alcohol or drugs or sexual struggles. You're not meant to be alone, and there is help out there. And by kind of growing in freedom in these areas, we prepare our hearts to receive the goodness that God has for us.
So, Sister, we've kind of come into the conclusion of this 3 parts, starting with the foundation, who are you, Lord, who am I? We got into some of the truths and the temptations of discernment. Here's some practicals. Personally, like, any final words for us?
Yeah, a final word. I love the story of John Paul II right after he had been elected Pope. And he was out on his balcony, and a Franciscan priest was there in the square. And the priest saw the Holy Father up on the balcony, and he said, "Holy Father, coraggio, coraggio," which means courage. Take courage, Holy Father. And that's a word I would love to end on. Take courage. My brothers and sisters, like, God has a plan for you. Your love is good and beautiful, and the Lord has a plan for it. So to take courage, take heart, that you are made for great things and destined for eternity.
Thank you, sister. That was great. That was great. I see why you're the Vocations Director. You're great. And it was wonderful to have you on here. Hopefully we can do this again sometime.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody, for watching, and take courage. We'll see you again next week. Remember, we are pilgrims on this earth. Somos peregrinos, poco a poco. Little by little, vamos a llegar. We're going to make it. All right. God bless y'all.